Take us through, first off, the trade, and then we'll talk about the kid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first off, we're super excited to add Josh here. I mean, did a ton of work on him, and credit to my scouting staff for all their hard work throughout the course of the calendar year, and then Rick and his staff. We got a chance to meet Josh at the formal interview at the Combine. We brought him in here for a 30 visit, did a little extra work on the knee and making sure we were good to go on there, and then did a couple different Zooms. Actually, we did one yesterday. It was funny because we were contemplating whether or not you wanted to Zoom him right at the end there again. And I kind of joked with Coach. I said, I mean, if some team's going to do something drastically different based off a 10-minute Zoom again, then more power to him. But again, we did a ton of work on Josh. I think everyone knows, when he's healthy and the tape he had early on last year before the injury, I mean, it puts him up there in the upper echelon of, what he could be and a future starter and difference maker at left tackle. But again, feel good about where we were with the process with him and all the work that we put in, and from the X's and O's with our coaches to the knee aspect. So extremely fortunate to get him. And at the end of the draft there, obviously I have a good relationship with Howie, and does a tremendous job. And when you get to these picks late in the draft and, they're eyeing a particular player, they're certainly worried about maybe getting jumped by another team. So we've done trades like this before where we just get to a point where it's just, tell me offense or defense. You don't got to tell me the player. Howie mentioned defense, and again, we had done similar trades in the past. Just tell me the side of the football. So, they got a really good football player in the linebacker from Alabama, and knew he was good for his word, and it made sense for us because obviously we were going to take Josh there at 31. So it was a win-win for them, and we got the guy we wanted there. So that's kind of how that trade went down.
How closely do you have to work with Rick on a player like this just to check and double-check and triple-check that he's going to be okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's availability is a great asset. I mean, you got to be on the field to get all that talent out of you. So a ton. I mean, we have 3-4 multiple meetings throughout the course. I mean, the guys, we'll get some early indications of what our scouts are saying from the training staff there, but it's not until they get to the Combine that you get the concrete medical information they need. Early on, when we got back from the Combine, I mean, everyone knew of the patella tendon injury, and those injuries are obviously serious, and they're 6-7 month recovery. And I do remember early on Rick saying, this knee looks really good. You got a really good surgery, and really like the way it looks. And I said, would it help if we brought him in a few weeks later just to get an update on that? And he said, absolutely, we did that. And he said, yeah, it looks great. And I think you guys may have saw some of the tape out there. He did do some stuff at the pro day. It was more stretching and some sets. But Rick said really for that injury for a guy to be already at that stage he was well ahead of where he should be. Now, doesn't mean he's going to be out there and full tilt for OTAs. I think we'll be smart with it. But I think that when we spoke this morning, there was really strong belief on Rick's side that for training camp he should be really good to go. So that'll be big for us and big for him.
Brett, I know that you guys do so much work in these last couple of months, but you scouted this kid quite a while ago when he was healthy. I mean, was there a spot that you envisioned him going as a healthy player? I mean, would you have envisioned him being a top 10 grade for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you start the process, training camp, we're peeking at college players and our guys get on the road, and there was a huge development in his play. But I think, typically once you get to week 3-4 of the college season, you're already starting. And when you throw that tape on, in your mind, I mean, there's a long way to go, but you're thinking, well, hopefully we're not in a position to take him because he'll probably go pretty high. But, I mean, things happen, and different players rise up, and injuries are part of the game here. And it's one of those double-edged swords where, I mean, there's still a rehabilitation process and belief in our training staff. But on the other end, had it not been for that injury, I mean, he's probably not there, right? So it's probably a blessing in a weird way that injury happened for us to be in this position and getting a lot of work ahead on on the football side and on the rehab side, but got a great coaching staff, great locker room, great training staff, so we feel good about what we can get out of him.
Obviously, with any injury, there's at least some risk. How much do you feel like when you said at the onset of the offseason, you tell your guys, hey, pretend there is no draft and they try. How much do you feel like having that philosophy sort of allows you the freedom to pick a guy, even if there is an injury history, whatever it might be, just having filled those needs in the offseason already?
Yeah, I try to keep it simple when it comes to the injury stuff, and I defer to Rick, and I could give my opinion on what I think medically or some of the injury history stuff, and we've seen it over the course of years. There's guys that have always seemed to have been nicked up in college and end up playing and always being available, and then there's guys that have been healthy their whole career and then they come here and all of a sudden. So again, my whole thing was where Rick was, and again it was a serious injury, but from the surgery to the rehab to where he was now and to how he was progressing. I mean, Rick said this is best case scenario for this injury, for where he is, and we're really positive and trusting our training staff. So I just ultimately always defer to him.
Brett, when you picked, at the time you picked, where was he on your board relative to everybody else? I mean, was it a sizable gap there?
Yeah, I mean, there was like, it was one of those things where, it was obviously a need, and we, these guys are hard to get, and we talk about it all the time. Left tackles don't typically become free when free agency starts, and sometimes it takes one of these scenarios, an injury or something out of the ordinary for a guy like this to fall. So he was certainly up there, and there was actually this happens every year. I think we only had 14 or 15 guys. He was in that weird landing space because prior to the injury he would have been in that number count, but there was a little there is going to be a rehab process there. So, but he was certainly a guy that made sense for us, and it's a weird deal when I know sometimes with these mock drafts we all follow them and there's so many of them. Typically, the guy that most people are kind of penciling you in at never really happens, and this was one of those weird deals where I kind of joke with the staff. I was like, yeah, there's a good chance, because I think when you look at like the board and you looked at Green Bay and Houston. When Houston traded out, then you're looking like, there could be a window here, because a lot of these teams now, when you're talking pick 26, 27, 28, 20, they have tackles. Washington took one. They did just, trade for Tunsil, but so it's not to say they couldn't take them, like Washington's example, but the other teams, the Buffaloes and the Ravens and those teams, you felt like, I think once we got past Green Bay there, we thought that that this window could open up, and I told the guys, and been working on this, just being patient, and going to be really excited tomorrow to have those picks and be able to maneuver now, and then cherry on top was getting a fifth round, because we did have that, we have the 2, the 2 3s, the 4, and then no 5 or no 6. So this keeps us in play, and our staff has done a really good job of picking up talent late. So that was super important to us as well.
We'll go across the room. Go ahead, Vahe.
Brett, obviously you were working your board, but I wonder how much the pick reflects a sense of urgency at the position.
Yeah. Well, I think in the NFL, Pat Mahomes is your quarterback, and you can never have enough of those guys. And with what we did in the off season, and we talked about not wanting to do the trade with Tooney, but just kind of had to, from our standpoint, bringing in Jalen Moore. But it's a long season, and Jalen Moore has to stay healthy, and Juwan's doing a great job with his rehab now on his knee, but he has to stay healthy. You need these guys, and it's such a premium position; they're hard to find anyway. And so I think the talent's there, and if everything goes smoothly, it should be a fascinating battle. I think you have some position versatility with these guys. If, say, everyone's healthy and everyone's up to speed with the playbook, right? So, you saw Josh played a little right tackle early on at San Diego Day, and you could probably move around guys, and we'll always work to get the best 5 on. But you have them under contract now for 5 years, and they're so hard to find. So, excited about potential competition in this in summer training camp, but we also know that we have some time now to not rush him and make sure he develops at his pace accordingly with his knee.
Hey, can you just elaborate on how vital it is to protect Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game. I mean, he's the best player in the game, and when Pat is upright, we have some talented weapons, and obviously excited about Hollywood and Rasheed and Worthy, and just got to keep him in a groove and keep him clean, and he's our most valuable possession. And so, I'm sure we'll still look again throughout the rest of the next 3 days. I mean, if there are talented offensive linemen available. Again, it's such a long season, and I mean, when these injuries happen, they happen, and we need depth across the offensive line, and like I mentioned, Jawan's coming back from a knee, and Jalen's going to get. Obviously, we're excited about his opportunity there at left tackle for what he did last year, but you're always going to be chasing the next one anyway, and they're hard to find. And when you have a guy that when he's healthy, he's as good as there is out there. You don't ever pass that up.
Todd, Brett, you've talked to this guy a lot. Some of the stuff you see around draft stuff is questioning maturity and things like that. How do you gauge that when you haven't really been around him in a football situation? It's just been meetings and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a good position in that regard, just because of our staff has been together for a long time, and then you have a first ballot Hall of Famer in Coach Reed, and so there's that area of we have great scouts that do a tremendous job of digging up information and laying out all the questions that we need answered. But look, I mean, Coach Reed's going to call Coach Day, and they're going to have private conversations, and the position coaches and Coach Hartline there at Ohio State is close with our guys, and we do a really good job of developing relationships, and those guys trust us with the information, but it really comes down to when you're at a school, and whether it be, and we did obviously a ton of work with the San Diego State staff. I mean, when you're at a school and you see these guys day in and day out, they're going to really know, where the improvement needs to be at, and then they're also going to recognize what it was when they first got there to where it was when they left. And I mean, the one consistent message that we got from the people at Ohio State was just night and day from when he first got here at San Diego State. And kid loves to compete, and like all these guys, I mean, even the guys that maybe never come up on a report or anything. I mean, all these guys need to grow up and mature in some regard, but I don't think we had any worry about that. I think it was more focused on the knee, and like I said, that's where I just put my trust in Rick.
Pete?
Based upon the 32 prospects that went off the board, I guess just wondering how you and your team are viewing the outlook for day 2 and day 3.
No, we're excited. Yeah, I mean, we're excited, and I always feel like Friday and Saturday are the two most exciting days. I think when you get to Thursday, everybody has the same 35, 40 names. It's just the needs and how the draft falls, and one pick could alter the course of other teams' picks, and you could be staring at your pick and have no one that you really wanted, or you could have multiple guys that you wanted, but it's always the same. But once you get past, and I think I've said this before, once you get past pick like 40, 45, 50, I mean, there's guys that you have in the 5th round that go there, and I'm sure that there's guys that we take that teams have lower, but that's just the way it works. But it's almost like these teams have the same 35 names on the board, and all these teams late, we're looking at the Simmonses and the Kentucky corner, and the guy the Eagles drafted, the linebacker from Bama. I mean, these are all the kind of the hot pocket names, and had a couple of guys call our scouting staff say that obviously they would have taken Simmons first, second pick tomorrow, day 2. So, but everybody has the same name. So I enjoy tomorrow because in that way I think there's a little bit more creative navigation and discrepancies on the board. So I think that there's more room to get creative. So I'm excited about tomorrow, and I mean, we have a 2 and 2-3. So I mean, come away with a guy that we're really excited about, left tackle, and then obviously we'll meet tomorrow and we'll have 3 more players. So I think we're off to a good start. We're excited about what tomorrow can bring us.
We'll go last 3. Adam, Matt, and Steve. Go ahead.
Right, since Eric Fisher left, you've taken a few swings at left tackle. Can you speak a little bit to the frustration of not being able to just maybe solve that problem long term until possibly now?
Yeah, I mean, we've won a lot of games, right? And we've been fortunate to win some Super Bowls too. But I think it's just, the evolution of where you are with picking late in the draft and guys not becoming available, cap space issues. And, it's one of those things where it would maybe be nice to not have to attack the left tackle issue year in and year out, but as soon as you solve that issue, you're going to have we don't have an edge guy, or we don't have a guard, or it's always in a revolving door, and that's the beauty of this league, and that's what makes it awesome. These teams are so close, and these games are so close, and you win by the margins, and so you're always chasing something, and as soon as we get a great left tackle, we're going to be trying to find another one to replace him, and that's just the way it is. And so we're just fortunate that it worked out today for us, that we got a guy that we're really excited about. And again, a lot of work ahead, but there's a lot to work with.
Matt?
Josh said that, no team seemed to show as much interest as you guys had in even doing some virtual meetings this week. What are some of the, finer details that you do pick up, even like this week, Wednesday? And was there a certain point where it became clear to you, like, hey, wait a minute, this is a legitimate guy for us?
That's a good question about. I don't, because you never know how the board's going to play out. But he was a guy that we were really excited about, and early on it was all the knee, and like I said, when we first got the original combine information, and Rick said, I think this is going to be pretty good, because he was leery when he heard about the injury from the scouting reports and the details and the trainer's notes. That was one of those, that could be bad. And then we came back, and he said it was optimistic, and when our docs saw the same things with Rick, that was good. And then as you go through this process, you only have so much time at the combine, and it's tricky because when you go to these formal interviews, you have 20 minutes, right? And sometimes these guys are coming from the other end of the hall, and by the time you get them, there's 17 minutes left. And by the time they exchange pleasantries with their coaches or share a story of a similar coach that they know, you're down to 10 minutes. You're not getting a ton. And so then you do the Zoom, and the Zoom's a little bit longer, but he's not there. So then you bring him in. But I think the one thing that was really encouraging for us was, again, there wasn't a lot of time to do a lot of football at the combine process. When we brought him, or when we had the Zoom, we were able to just put some install stuff in, talk football, gauge how he could retain, and then we kind of waited a few weeks. And what we talked about was, now this guy's been on a lot of visits, and he's been on a lot of Zooms. So between the personal visits, the in-house visits, and the Zooms, he's met with every team, and he's got 32 installs. So it would be cool to let's Zoom him again late, and let's see what he remembered from our install and how much he retained. And that's kind of why we did that yesterday. Just we thought it'd be a pretty cool experiment, and he did a good job. And a lot of the stuff that we did from our 30 visit to the Zoom just a day or two ago, there was a lot of retention there, and so that was another really good sign. Again, when you're getting 32 installs, it's a lot to remember. So, but those you just keep, it's just part of the puzzle, and you just keep adding information, and and we really like the person too. When he came in here, he good interaction, good experience with the people he worked with or he met with on our staff. Obviously, they're always going to be buttoned up for the coaches, but sometimes you always want to see how they treat the support staff here, and that was another good sign there. So everything just kept trending in a positive direction, and then it worked out for us on draft day where he was still there.
Last one, Darren.
Brett, a couple questions. One, I know you're used to being at the end, but were you all contacted about possibly trading out for another team to come in for your for your pick? And then I have another question after that.
We had a couple teams that threw out scenarios, I think at 27 or 28, and then a couple teams call back at 29, say that their guy had been picked. I'm presuming one of them might have been the Kentucky corner, and someone else. And then when we were on the clock, I was on the phone with the Eagles for a majority of that, and I think my guys knew I was locked in. So if there was something that happened, it was something so small that it wasn't worth kind of, getting off task.
For you, coming into the draft and as you approach these last years, what constitutes a successful draft for you? And then as you talked about, Patrick and trying to find the right left tackle, the right tackle for that position. You know, the last couple of years, you've gotten Wanye, you've gotten Kingsley, and doesn't seem to have worked out in that area. You're hoping, obviously, with the free agent that you signed from San Francisco along with this draft pick. What's gonna constitute that being a successful draft for you and making sure that you got the right player for that position for Patrick?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, first part of the question is, I mean, there'll be some boxes we want to check, and that's obviously draft as many players and you know, retain assets, and but from the standpoint of make sure that we always leave a draft O-line, D-line, depth level there, and then just trying to pencil in the value and the need together, right? But you'll never be able to stamp anything on a draft until you see the guys play and how they produce and perform on the field. So all this is always wait and see, no matter who you pick, until they're actually on the field competing and how productive they are. But just in general, I mean, again, I think it's good protocol and practice to always leave a draft with offensive lineman and defensive lineman, and then just kind of work at O-line, D-line, corners, receivers, and so from the standpoint of addressing primary, I mean, these games, you have to have a quarterback to win. Then you got to protect them and get after them. And so one of those boxes are checked, and I'm sure we'll try to add some defensive linemen tomorrow. I mentioned earlier, there's some depth in the defensive end class, and I think there's some corners that we like. So we'll certainly try to check off the boxes of need that meets the talent, and then from there we'll judge the success in a few years from now and see how good these guys are.
Thanks, Veach.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Thank you.